Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy, Barnett,
Hi.
Robin Grubel,
Hey there.
and Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists. It's Canine Detection Collaborative!
The way that the book is organized, you have all these different prompts, which is just like this really cool way of just kind of thinking about it from all these different, I'm kind of picturing like a ball and you've got all these different like angles coming in at the same issue, right? And I'm wondering if maybe we can explore a couple of those and just to kind of give examples for some of the different types of category. I don't know if they're categories or chapters or whatever you want to.
Yeah, I just made up stuff here. Yeah. Topics, ideas, concepts. There's ways to think of them.
Flipping through it, a lot of it made a lot of sense. Like, and I'm going, and I have to say, like, a couple of the things I looked at that I read even like the topic, and I ended up with a like one of those grief ambushes, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like you were talking about mementos, for instance, as an example. And I saved Joey's purple thing, which was like this purple toy that he would carry around for like years. He had this thing. And it was like all of a sudden the image of that kind of came into my head, and you just kind of feel it all over again.
Oh,
right.
But I was wondering, maybe
You have to talk about the color chapter or Robin will murder
Yes,
us.
the color chapter.
And then we'll all be grieving the loss of all of the co-hosts.
Yeah, we can talk about the color chapter for sure. But I would say overall, Stacy, what you're saying is there's benefit to feeling those emotions, even though they're unpleasant and they're strong. And so even though you look at a prompt or you look at a question and you go, oh my gosh, that's awful. That reminds me of all these things, and it brings up all these terrible feelings that I have that they need to get out, because they're still there, whether we're talking about them or thinking about them or not, they're still there, just under the surface. And I always think of them as, ready to just come out at any moment. I'd rather it came out when I had some control of the situation than when I didn't. And so if I was taking the time to sit down and look at the prompts and write them, now I've got a little more control going on here. And I still may end up sobbing throughout the whole thing or by the end of it, but that one is out, that little bit, even though it may happen again and again. At least I'm starting to deal with the fact that I've got all these pent up emotions going on in here, and you can't keep them inside forever, because then we explode. And very bad things happen inside and outside when that occurs. So, well, I just want to say, so overall, I think it's not always a terrible thing to feel terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty brief, but it was like all of a sudden like a pang, like a boing. Like a
and then other times you just know, I can't deal with this today. That I just can't. I'm not up for it. So don't. Again, come back later. Maybe you will at a different time. Maybe you'll feel better about it. But we better talk about the color prompt. Because, yes, Robin wanted us to talk about the color prompt. So let me say a little bit about that.
Yeah,
I've always, those of us that I think do sports and performance stuff maybe more than the regular average person. I don't know. I've always had colors for our dogs, like what their gear is in particular. So, we talk about this when we get a puppy.
What color is the puppy going to be? It was like,
be?
oh, well, it's a black pup. It's a black lab. I'm like, no, that's not the color.
No, that's right. We know what color the dog is. I need to know what their color is going to be. Yeah. And so and it's like each dog has to have their own color. I don't know why we feel this way, but it has to be unique to the dog. So I can't give them a color that another dog of mine has ever had. I'm running out of colors.
I know,
as
right?
we go along. I have to recycle, and I don't really want to do that. I want everybody to have their color. I don't know why that feels special to us as owners and trainers, but it does for some reason. So we tend to have a lot of gear in that color, and that, assign some meaning to that, assign a connection to that. That sort of then eventually for me comes back to mementos, because then I'd have like the collar that I always keep, the collar that they wore and look back on. I've still got all Zen stuff hanging up with all the other dogs. I can't take it down yet, but I've got all his color, his pattern.
He had a pattern.
Okay. Like a leopard print pattern, because it went really well on him. It looked good with his kind of red coloring.
I mean, Checkmate has a checkerboard, so
there you go.
Right.
Yeah, it's why it's important to us. It seems like a pretty silly thing sometimes, but I care more about what my dogs wear than I care about what I would wear.
I feel attacked. Hashtag attack.
Unless I'm dressing to match my dog, as we often did, or to contrast in the right way with my dog, depending on what you're wearing. Yeah, but they have their colors, and so. But color, there's a whole science behind color as well, and how color makes you feel. And I think that some of that goes into it, even though we don't realize it. It's like, if you think about your favorite colors, are the colors that make you feel calm and relaxed, as opposed to colors that make you feel more energized and excited. And there's something to all of that. And I can't swear to be any expert on color, except understanding the very, very basics of it, but there's a lot of emotion involved. So when we choose that color for our dogs, then that color itself becomes yet another trigger later on. And you might not even think about it, but it's like, oh, if I see something that's similar, or I see another dog wearing my dog's color.
Like, you can't have that color on your dog. That's my dog's color.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like two girls that show up to prom in the same dress. I mean,
yes, or somebody who names their dog with the name of one of your dogs.
How dare they?
It's like there are only so many names in the world, but it's like, we feel like it's, we take a lot of ownership of that, and we feel like it's unique to that. And I will say before, nobody else would probably realize this but me, but because Zen was a big part of my life, and a very public dog in many ways. And Denise asked me before she named her Zen if
of course she spelled it differently.
If she did, and she spelled it differently. She said she spelled it with an X instead of a Z, and so I was great with that. I would not have had a problem if she named the dog Zen. Anyway, but it's kind of nice that she asked that about that. So I think we some of these things that we feel are kind of even silly or not important, they matter to us. And during grief, they still matter a lot to us. Yeah. And if I think about a color that my dog's personality is, so if you think about any particular dog, you can probably think of a predominant color that they are just based on their personality. And sometimes I feel like, I'm not into it and I'm not against it. I feel like, I don't know, maybe there is something to it somewhere, that there's this, projection of color around creatures. It could be. I wouldn't say there's not, because you never know. I know enough science to know I don't know a lot. So maybe there is. And I feel like that's true for a lot of animals, that we feel something, in a possibly coming from them, and that we assign it a color, that we feel like a color is important there. And so, I think it matters to us, and it's important to us. And that's the whole thing about grief. It doesn't have to matter to anybody else. These things matter to us. And why, then you can get into the specifics of it. Why did I think of Zen with a leopard print? There's probably a whole lot of reasons. Yeah. Some of them may be very strange. What does that mean to me? Why did I pick that? Why did I feel that was appropriate? But I think there's a lot that just to consider there. And, we go from something visual like color, and then we talked about music. So we already talked about sound a little bit. And I was just doing it today when I was grooming, singing to one of my dogs while he's on the grooming table. And it's like, is that really helping in any way? Is that making him feel better? Is that making him want to leave? But
if it makes you feel better, then it's going to make them feel better. And that I always go there.
Okay, that makes sense. Because though if I sing really loudly, Star is highly alarmed.
my guys howl. If I sing, they all howl. I'm like, okay, stop it. I know it's bad.
Exactly. But we have, I mean, we have the visual thing with color. We have sounds and different music that we connect to a dog. Possibly that particular dog has that particular song or that little phrase that you always sing to them or say to them. And then you can even get into things like all the different names you call the same dog and how many different names they end up having. I think Wizard has 12 different names that I call him that are all some variation on Wizard. And then they get kind of far afield even of Wizard. So.
I've got a bunch of those. So prompt number 10.
Okay.
Regrets and guilt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All of us.
Yes. And I think we all kind of go through that, right? Is, the whole I should have done this, or I missed out doing this, or I should have, it's this whole I should have, or
that's
I
the
didn't
worst word.
finish this, or I did or I always wanted to do this with this dog and I never got around to it, or all of that.
That's a huge topic all in itself. The idea that many people will feel like whatever we did, it was the wrong thing. Yeah. We didn't do enough. We did too much. We did the wrong thing altogether. We somehow let our dogs down, in a number of different ways.
Or we let others down. Because like you said, other people knew your dogs.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
And accidents happen. So many things happen. And so then that becomes so heavy.
Yeah.
And especially
really
public
does.
figures. I don't know how you guys do it. Oof.
It's very, very uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
It can be very unpleasant because it seems like everybody in the world knows what you should have done.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is happy to tell you that you did the wrong thing. And very freely tell you that you did the wrong thing, and that you made mistakes. And I think most of us know that we make the best choices we can with the information we have at the moment.
Yes.
And that's all we can do. And we know that logically. We get back to this logic versus emotion thing all the time. Logically, I know that. I made the decisions I made thinking they were the right decisions, always. Yeah. I didn't purposely say, oh, I don't care. I'm just going to do what's easiest for me. I go into it. Yeah, if I was that kind of a person, I wouldn't care.
We wouldn't be here right now.
Right. Because it wouldn't matter to me at all. But it matters to me a lot. We want to do the right thing for these animals that we're responsible for.
Right.
And I think we feel that so powerfully. But we also have this false sense that we can control more than we can.
Yeah.
We're control freaks.
This illusion of control. We are. I think a lot of animal trainers are.
I should have noticed this sooner with it. Like if you have a dog that gets sick, right?
Right.
I should have noticed this sooner, or I should have done this other thing, or what if I had?
Right. Yeah, the hindsight bias. Hindsight bias is huge. Because now I know. Yeah. It's like after the event, I know.
And it can eat at us. It's like, and trying to escape that, I think is a huge challenge.
Do you have tips for that you've covered in your book too?
I don't know if I can say I have tips for it, other than the fact that we know that it's a big thing, that acknowledging that, yes, it's natural and it's normal for me to look back now and feel like I made mistakes. That everybody does. We all feel that way. I don't think any of us feels like I made all the right decisions all throughout.
Right.
And also that nobody else gets to tell me that I made the right or wrong decision. And that's probably the hardest part a lot of times is other people want to tell you that you did or didn't do the right thing, and trying to step away from that and not take it personally. And not take it at all. It's like, unless I asked you, you don't have any input into my choices. If I ask you for your opinion, then that means that I'm going to take it into account. But and after the fact, I can't, after the fact, your opinion doesn't matter because the decision that happened, the thing is done. Yeah. It's over with. So I think it's hard to say, to kind of step out of this feeling that I want people to recognize that I did the right thing, because there are always going to be people who won't believe you did the right thing. There are always going to be people who believe the worst of us in our decisions, especially when it comes to euthanasia.
Yeah.
That's the place where everybody has an opinion, and you know what they can do with their opinions.
Yeah, it's not their right. This is grief. Grief is personal. I think think that's kind of what you're saying, is that all of this is very personal.
Right. And to think, I think a lot of us also believe that things I could have done.
Yeah.
That if I look back now, I didn't do everything. And the idea that you could possibly do everything is ridiculous.
Yes.
There's a limit to what can reasonably be done for any human or animal, to keep them alive at some period of time and to make them happy and comfortable. Yeah. And so who's to say? I did what I thought was reasonable in that situation. What you might have done might have been very, very different. And I might have opinions about that. I might have opinions about what somebody else chose, but I'm not going to voice them unless I'm asked specifically. And then even then I might or might not voice them, depending on how the person would take it and whether it would be helpful in any way or not.
Right. So it gets to what's helpful and what isn't. Right. Correct. So there's certain behavior that, is probably not helpful to express to somebody.
Right. Yeah. Just because you feel it and you think it doesn't mean you have to tell the person.
It doesn't mean you have to say it, right? Yeah.
Right. Don't say it. I think if we learn anything from social media, we should have learned to be quiet a little more and roll on by and not give your opinion. Especially when it's going to be very painful, and being right has nothing to do with being kind.
Yeah.
So I don't, the idea that I might be right doesn't matter. What's it matter if I'm right and you're wrong? It's going to only hurt you. It's not a thing to say. It's not a good thing to do. And so many people don't know that lesson at all. They say what they think because they want to be right and they want to prove that you are wrong for whatever reason it might be, and some of this stuff just turns into, as we know on social media, into a feeding frenzy of then going after a person for decisions they've made or things that have happened or been done. So
do you have any pro tips on how you've handled people that you felt that made you feel okay in the end about how you handled it or how you set those boundaries?
Boundaries. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, because when are you able to just ignore them? Is that a good solution? Yes. Because, you're going through enough now that you can just close that tab and say, that's not something I have to have in my space right now. Or did you find like a blanket kind of comment that you could say to people that had kind of overstepped their boundaries or overstepped your boundaries? Like, I don't know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I've had a lot of
you've had experience,
social criticism, about decisions that I've made publicly, one way or the other. And I think the first thing is we want people to understand why we did what we did, why we made the choices we made, and we'd love to get like social validation.
Yes.
And you do. To some extent. I mean, there are a lot of people who understand, and there are a lot of people who give you that support. So I think that's great. And I appreciate that when it happens, when I see that somebody really understands that I struggled with something, but yet I still made this decision that I probably really didn't even want to make, but it seemed to be the right one.
It's hard to lean into that. It's so easy to hear that criticism though. Like I get 10 people that are like, wow, you go girl, I stand behind you. And then there's that one person that says, how dare you? And that one person is the one that's going to beat my brain up.
Exactly. Like class evaluations. You're a teacher.
Yeah.
We do the same thing with class evaluations every year. 95%, 99% great. Oh, wait a minute. Here's one that says something bad about me.
Yeah.
Let me focus all of my interest in that.
Right.
And feel terrible about that and completely ignore all the good things that anybody ever said.
Yeah.
We're somehow wired that way, and it's not helpful.
No,
not even
a
little bit. I mean, I try to look at whether somebody has a valid thing to say, but when it comes to some really emotional decisions, anything that feels slightly judgmental, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
You don't get to judge me. And the only way I cannot let you judge me is if I don't respond to it. And if I move on as if it never happened.
Gotcha.
So I don't react, I don't respond. And it's back to that point. It's not my job to educate you on how you should react when I'm the one who's grieving. So I'm not telling you that you were wrong about what you're saying. I'm just not going to say anything, probably. I found ignoring, again, back to kind of animal behavior, ignoring what we don't like, just ignoring it. And often other people will speak to something that they see, especially if it's really, really bad, and they will sort of step in and tell the person, hey, this isn't appropriate here. And I'll let that happen. And I've learned the power of deleting things. I love deleting comments. If I see a comment that makes me feel bad, I'm deleting it.
Oh, especially on my own timeline. If somebody posts,
you don't get to be in my space.
No, get out of my space. Get out of here. What are you doing?
I'm deleting it. I block people. I have blocked more than a handful of people over time, more than once of doing that nonsense. And it's clear that, you're not in my world in order to be at all supportive or helpful or whatever. So people don't matter to me. And I guess is that a pro tip? That seems pretty harsh, but they don't matter to me.
This is what I got from it. Anytime someone is going to give me some sort of feedback that's unsolicited and hurtful, I think I'm going to respond back. Dr. Deb Jones says I don't have to respond to you.
But see, you're responding. You can see, Doctor. Don't talk to Deb Jones about
I can
this.
say, yes. No, let's not do that. Poor thing. No, no, but just you've kind of given me permission. And I know sometimes that's just what some people need to hear, is just to have that permission to go, look, this is a true professional that knows how to deal with grief and has handled a lot. And this is an appropriate way to deal with that. Like, you don't owe them that space or that time.
Right. It's just the opposite. If people are not, this idea that when you're the person who's grieving, you're at the center of the circle and everybody else is out around you. And it's like comfort in. Only comfort gets to come into the center of the circle. Anything that's not comfort is out of the universe. So you don't need to be in any of my circles, no matter how close or far away from me you are, if you're going to make me feel worse than I feel right now.
Right.
Yeah.
That just is not acceptable. And when we start to engage with somebody who does that, what are we doing? We're reinforcing them with attention.
Yes.
And then usually they dig in, we get more upset. Nothing good comes of it.
It sounds like dog training.
Funny, huh? When I say all animals are the same. Yes. Yeah. It's on certain levels and concepts, we are exactly the same as every other creature. Whenever we try to change behavior, it's the same.
So that actually kind of interesting. This whole, if all animals are the same, like how about animals grieving for other animals?
Oh yeah, that's one I always want to talk about. And I see a lot of people that will say that they have, and I think especially it's true. Maybe you have two dogs and one dies. And then you worry about the one that's left. And are they grieving or not? And I've always thought, part of me always says, well, you can't possibly know.
Right.
Anytime you have a big change in environment, behavior is going to change.
Yes.
And so it could be, do they feel something similar to grief or not? It's hard to know. I think that maybe there are certain animals that really do grieve certain other animals when they're gone. And I did see that. I've only seen it once in the 30 some years I've had lots of dogs. Yeah. But we had gotten Quest about 9 months before we got Zen. And Quest was a Sheltie, Zen was a border collie. And they sort of grew up together and they were best friends, as you would say. They spent time together, they played together, they preferred each other's company over anybody else's. And when Quest died, he was a little over 10. I saw a massive change in Zen's behavior.
Yeah.
This was a dog who never stopped moving, never stopped doing, never stopped staring at me, never, always he'd go lay down in the corner, curl up and lay down. And I'm like, that's gotta be grief. I don't know what else to call it.
And it's kind of like after I lost Judd, Y stopped wanting to search for like almost 2 years. And all of a sudden, again, I would take him, I'd take everybody out in the van, have the other dogs, and I'd set something. I'm like, would you like to try? I bring him out, and he's like, no, not really. And he was like this for like 2 years, and all of a sudden he goes, oh, I think I'd like to try this. And it took that long, and then I changed how I reinforce him, and now he loves it now. But he took like this 2-year hiatus, and it seemed to coincide from when Judd got sick and died, and it was very interesting to see. And I think that could have been.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, it's so hard to know.
We don't know. We don't know.
We can't. If we could just ask them.
So I'm having some light bulb moments for maybe this. I don't know if I can verbalize, but grief is habits that are no longer happening, and it's expectations that we're having that are no longer fulfilled.
Okay, that's
right. Isn't that kind of what it is?
That is. That makes perfect sense.
And so, if that's what grief is, then that's what our dogs are experiencing, because they are such. I mean, they are way better patterns than even I could ever dream of being. And I'm such a pattern fool. And so, because I'm thinking back and I'm like replaying moments of seeing my dogs, what I thought was grieving. And I think I can actually call it that now if I'm defining grief as this yearning for this expectation that's no longer there. And they're having to rewire their brains to this new reality of, like Yukon would even go for Quinn's bowl right after, and I would see him eat his food real fast, and then he would look for Quinn's bowl.
So that expectation, gets
that expectation, and that expectation not being there, that break in expectations is grief. So I think it would be almost fair to say that our dogs are grieving if they're looking for those same patterns and they're not there anymore, and that's why some take it harder than others because they don't like change. And they have a harder time with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just so hard to actually, I think, give something a label that when we're seeing behavior change, we know there's so many reasons for it.
We can't feel what they're feeling. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah, but we can observe that they're looking for this thing.
And we think of grief as more emotional than behavioral. But when you describe it as behavioral as well, it's like, their routines have changed completely many times.
Yeah.
And their context.
My habits change. Their habits have now changed.
And I wonder how much is it because of my emotions changing?
Yeah.
Because ours are so sensitive to how we feel that could be it more than the loss of the other animal. So it gets all complicated very, very quickly.
I think that's where like a neurodiverse dog like Yukon, I think is a good one about the behavioral side of it. Because I just saw him, and he's what I really saw that had the changes. And it's because of the patterns and the expectations that he had.
Okay.
And so I don't know that he really fed off of my grief, whereas like Radish was all about my grief. She was like, I'm going to hold you down. You're not going to do this alone, sister.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, bring it.
And some animals seem to notice that in us a lot more than others. I think that there are some that are very sensitive to our emotional moods and changes, and others that just are kind of whatever. Life goes on. We move along. Everything's
Can you
great.
please get my dinner?
Right, exactly. As long as
we used to train more. Why aren't we training more? Come on.
As long as it doesn't disrupt them too much, they're like, whatever. So very resilient that way. Whereas I feel really kind of feel bad for the ones that are very sensitive to us.
Yeah.
Even though we've built that relationship purposely with, most of our dogs that we're training with a lot and working with a lot, then I think the downside of that for them is, when something happens to us emotionally, they're all about it. They're feeling it very strongly. Yeah.
Okay. So this is another topic that I wanted to ask about, and it's anticipatory grief, because that was another thing that I felt with Rad. Yes. I was trying so hard not to let Quinn feel the grief that I was having, knowing that I was going to have to make a decision soon. And I was trying to be, my word was now. Every time I would start to feel any sort of ping, I would just say now. And I have it written on my refrigerator. I had it written on my hand. I mean, it was this constant, I needed to see it to remind myself that anytime I started to feel that ping of anticipation that this is our last this is our last that, and I would feel so sad.
Yes.
And if I just thought of the word now, I would go, okay, don't be sad. You're in the now. Stay here.
Right. Because it's very easy to get lost in the emotion before the event has happened.
Yeah.
I think it's, we know it's going to happen, and we know it with all our dogs that eventually, but we like to think eventually way down the line it's going to happen. When you start to get a more defined timeline for your loss, then it's hard not to fall into that abyss of, I'm just going to start grieving right now and grieve all the way through.
Yeah.
And like with Zen, he had pretty serious heart disease.
Yeah.
And I started grieving, and then he kept living and he kept living. And he was happy as a clam.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why am I grieving this happy living dog?
Yes.
But it's really hard to, like you say, keep yourself in the moment, keep yourself in. It hasn't happened yet. And I can still make today good. I can still make this a good time for both of us. We can still have good experiences together, but it's always going to be in the back of our minds that, oh, will this be the last time we do this? And I think I get into that kind of thinking very easily. But part of that is also good because it's like, well, I better do this today because we might not have another chance. So I won't put off anything, this trip I won't put off. I won't put off taking this walk with them. I won't put off, playing ball again today. And anything, even if I don't feel like doing it right now, I won't put it off because I know that at any time that could be it. And we know that with all dogs, but with some dogs, we get a very clear timeline for how much longer that's going to be. And it's really hard for us to know all that. I think it's almost worse.
Yeah, they have something going on that may or may not have a timeline, but that it just kind of like right now it's like Y has laryngeal paralysis, and it smacks me in the head in terms of like I hear him breathing and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's turning 12 years old. And you start thinking like, well, how many more times can I go out and trial this dog at Elite? And it's getting hotter and it's getting this. And you start like getting into this, like you can almost like overdo it, just trying to like cram everything in.
Right.
That's not necessarily as good, although I do have some trials scheduled with him. Because I'm like, well, because I don't know how he's going to feel in the fall, So I think it's the whole, kind of reacting to the potential for anticipatory. Not that, right. So I'm like anticipating the anticipatory grief.
So you're like an overachiever in terms.
Yes, I'm an overachiever. In anticipatory grief.
Feeling really bad about possibly feeling bad about something bad possibly happening.
Right. So, because
such an overachiever.
I know, right? So, you end up like your previous experience of like, well, I didn't get to this or I didn't get to that. Or like Joey, I never finished that last leg of his beginner novice title. So with Y, I'm like, oh, he's got this, thing hanging out there and I want to accomplish that. And like, oh gosh, right? Because I had all this grief before and I know I'm going to end up feeling it again. And
well, you kind of get into, I don't want to regret what I didn't do. Right. And I don't want to regret what I did either. Right. I don't want to regret, so it's like I'm trying to find that balance. And all of this is happening on an unknown timeline.
Right.
It's like, I don't know when it's over, it's over. And then grief is. Yeah. But when it's not here yet, it might be tomorrow. It might be 6 months. It might be a year.
I think my brain is exploding. Like it just literally gets
it's exhausting.
Like this, and then,
And adding to that, something that I dealt with was because I was trying so hard to be in the now, I feel things so intensely. And I think sometimes when I describe things, I think it's more intense than some of my other friends or just other people sometimes. And then I thought, do I really want to have this sort of intense, connection and love and moment, knowing that these are some of my last moments and knowing that I am going to grieve this moment right now because it's so intense and so powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't regret those.
Yeah.
But it did make, I think, the initial grieving way harder.
It's terrifying because it's coming.
Yes. But I lived it so full. I mean, it was like every snore, every fart, like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I had to say he had a GI issue, and that's why I had to put him down. So that's why I make jokes about his farts.
I would take videos of Zen sleeping and doing the old dog snoring thing.
Yes.
Because I'm like, this is going to be gone.
Yes.
And I want to remember all these little moments, even though knowing that they weren't going to be there very long is painful, but I still wanted to remember them. And so I found myself taking every day, remembering to take some pictures, remembering to take video of just normal things, day-to-day things that I wouldn't even share with anybody, but that I would have to go back and to look at myself. And I think that, to me, I'm glad I did those things. So having the knowledge that time was limited was helpful in that way, that I could kind of prepare a little bit. Whereas I've had situations where it was a total, surprise out of the blue kind of thing. And the shock of that is very different from knowing it's going to happen, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later, probably on down the line. So I can't say either one is easier than the other. They're both hard in very different ways. But
I just wish I didn't have to make the decision all the time. Every dog I've had to make, there's only one that I didn't make the decision for. I'm like, come on, guys.
That responsibility is horrible. I mean, what do we wish they die in their sleep?
Yeah, just come on, guys. Let's make this easier.
Well, we wish that for ourselves too. It's like,
I don't know why that made me think of something else. I feel like sometimes I'll be going along fine in my day, and for some reason, it's almost like I want to shake my box up for a second. Like I almost want to feel those twinges of grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a weird thing too that hits me on occasion, where I'm just driving and all of a sudden I feel like, why did I just shake that box? I was doing fine.
I know
like
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. It's almost like it feels good to feel bad, or it feels familiar.
Yeah.
And it's like, I shouldn't forget yet. It's too soon to feel better. And it's very familiar to have these unpleasant feelings, and that kind of sucks us in. I think it sucks us back in. And I think that's why it's so easy to kind of get stuck in the same place in grief. Because even though it's painful, we feel almost comfortable with it. And when it starts to feel better, we feel guilty about feeling better, because they're still dead. Right. And how can I feel better now because they're still dead?
Okay.
Yeah. Or what about like you have that next dog? It's like, well, I can't replace this dog with this dog.
Right.
You start actually like, I think, and maybe I could be off base here, but how you grieve can actually affect the relationship you have with your next dog.
Oh,
and that it can block
huge,
to some extent.
Yeah. I think we can have very unrealistic expectations about the next dog, and they're may never measure up to the dog that we lost, especially if it was a really great dog, if it was just one that was, for whatever reason we really clicked with. And I almost hate to use the term heart dog because we use it a lot.
We can have several of those.
And I think we have a lot more than one, but I think every once in a while there's one that comes along the loss is just, the relationship is different in ways we can't even talk about. And the loss is much more devastating than it is. So I asked you guys if I can curse on here earlier, and you said I could.
Absolutely.
Because something from human grief that somebody said one time that made sense to me is some deaths just fuck up the world.
Oh yeah.
It's like they're the ones that go beyond anything.
Yep.
I mean, I've had a lot of dogs die, and then I had Zen die.
Yeah.
That's a whole different level of losing an animal, and there's no way around it. So I can't, so it's not fair to me to now compare poor Wizard, who's a very normal, nice, average dog, but Zen was spectacular in many ways.
Oh, I had Judd. It was the same thing. And it's like, I feel like Brava was always kind of in his shadow.
Right.
And I always, and I had to like kind of tell myself like, no, she's not walking in his footsteps.
And it's
she
not
has her own
fair.
Footsteps.
Right.
Right. It's not fair to her.
Right. And because they are, and we can put limitations on them just by the way we're thinking about them.
Exactly.
And there's never, making the compare never fair, but it's hard not to after you've had a big loss like that. But every dog, when I lose them, I think that's the hardest dog I've ever lost. And then the next one comes along and I'm like, no, this one's
it just kicks you harder to the curb. I was like, boom.
Right. It's like, oh, I didn't know it could be this much worse. I thought it was really bad, at this point, but wow, this is even so, what makes one different than the other, I don't know for sure, but it does make future relationships even more complicated. And I think we often make the mistake of trying to hold the next dog to a standard that's just not fair to them. And we don't let them be who they are because we really want them to be who we lost. We would like that back. And so why can't you be that for me? And it's like, well, that's because they're different. They're not the same dog and they're never going to be. And so then we can either be disappointed or we can be realistic.
Or then there's also the guilt if you don't grieve one as much as the other.
Well, we can feel guilty in so many ways.
I can feel guilty about anything and everything. It's just like, just kind of, it's crazy.
We can feel guilty in a million ways about how we feel.
And so the point is that that's not helpful, right?
No, it's not really. Comparing losses between individuals never works well. It never ends well. And comparing my loss to yours isn't possible. And if to say, somebody to say, well, my dog was younger when they died, so my loss was worse because you had your dog for longer. And then I'm going, no, because I had more years to have a relationship. That makes me, that whole comparison. And then we compare each dog we've had. Did I grieve enough for this one? Because I think I grieved more for this one. But it was a different time in our lives. We were doing different things with those dogs. We had different other things going on outside. First dogs in many ways, dogs that were there for us for things that, were big moments in our lives.
Right.
And changed us. Sometimes you say you have that dog that kind of changes the trajectory of your life.
Yes.
So that's we're grieving that along with the loss of the dog. And I think that's a big thing that we don't often think about, so.
I've been writing some things down because you guys are just making my brain spin.
I hope that's a good thing and not a bad thing.
It is. No, I feel like I'm making connections that I needed to make. So I really appreciate you. I just appreciate you, period.
That's so kind. It's the whole topic is so hard to talk about. But you guys are making it really easy to talk about, which I love. I think we need more of that.
I love that we can talk about it and not get too emotional because I've twinged a couple of times where I'm like, okay, I got to stop and I got to get back to my scientific, rational, logical curiosity side. And that's why I think if I could share two things real quick about the guilt side that I experienced that might help others that maybe had a similar guilt. And maybe I'm hoping I'm not the only one. One of them was my dog, Honey Bear. My dad named her.
You wanted to make that clear. You didn't come up with that.
I don't know why I had to make that so clear in that moment. But she was the family dog that then came to live with me to the end of her life. And we don't know what happened to her, potentially poisoning. I don't know. But I had taken her to the vet. The vet was trying to figure it out. We were doing everything we could. I took her back home. My vet gave me the cell phone, like the whole thing. She was so good. And I knew that night I couldn't get her back to the vet in time. So I knew she was dying in front of me and I just wanted her to go peacefully. But there was this weird fascination I had in that moment that I had never experienced before of watching her die in front of me. And I felt guilty that I didn't just have this immense sadness, but there was also a curiosity of this process that was happening in front of me. And it bothered me for years. The fact that I couldn't do anything for her. I knew she was passing and I was there for her as, this support and all of my love. But at the same time, I had fascination. And it's, wow, that twisted my brain a whole bunch. That was not okay.
Well, I think we avoid death so much that we don't know what it's like. We don't have any familiarity with it because we want it to happen somewhere else behind closed doors or have it be very sanitized.
Yes. And it was just the two of us.
And just to experience it directly like that. Yeah, I think that's something that's not as common as people might think. And I'd have to say I have this little thing when my dog is euthanized, that I have this little weird feeling. We have this connection as they're kind of going somewhere else or they're leaving. And I've had that moment with every dog that I've had euthanized. And I feel like, they're starting to move away from me and they're starting to go somewhere I can't follow them yet, kind of thing. And I'm fascinated by that. But, I think we've been led to believe you shouldn't be that interested in death. You should avoid it. You should avoid anything to do with it as much as you can. So
I hope that's not a singular thing, that I'm the only one that's ever felt that.
You are.
So, but it haunted me for years. And the other guilt thing that I had was wrapped around Ike, and he was my German Shepherd at DM. And the end of his life, I had him in a wheelchair. Like, I was breaking my back, carrying him everywhere, cleaning up after him. He had no control. Like, it was a lot of work. And when he passed, I felt some relief because I had invested so much time of every day of caregiving that I didn't have all that time I had to invest anymore. And I did feel relief after his death. Oh, dude, I beat myself up for that one too. And it's like, why? I can look back now and go, that was dumb. Like, I could grieve the attachment that I had, and I could grieve that the loss of space and time that I had with him. And I still have the attachment with him. I love that dog and will forever love him. But man, I wish I wouldn't have beat myself up for feeling relief that he had passed.
I can tell you for sure that's normal. That's common. This idea that as much as you don't want them to die, there is that, like, I'm not going through, especially if you're a caretaker, and there's a lot involved there. I'm not having to go through that anymore. So it is a huge relief. It just practically
is. Fatigue, right?
Yes.
The fatigue.
I was
exhausting.
So tired. Yes.
Caretaking.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's gone. So we can feel guilty about anything. So we feel guilty about feeling better because why should I feel better when they're dead? And we don't feel better because they're gone, but we feel better because that responsibility is now taken off our shoulders. I think that, and in the exhaustion of the whole thing, it's huge. It's big.
Now, here's the weirdest one. I felt so much grief when Quinn could no longer compete. So he had tick disease, and it just obliterated him. And you would have thought my dog died. I mean, he still lived several years after that, but I grieved as hard as some of the humans that have died. I grieved that hard to do the sports anymore.
And I think, that again, I think is something more people in dog sports and performance events would understand.
Absolutely.
The amount of time and effort that you put in to the training, and then that just changes the relationship and the focus and the goals, and all of that dies all of a sudden. All of that is just gone. It's like, okay, let's just take away all your goals, but no big deal. No big deal. That shouldn't bother you because your dog's still alive. Know?
Well, can't you just enjoy your dog? I'm like, I do enjoy him, but
you put a lot into that. Yeah. And I don't know that everybody does understand how much time and effort and thought and focus, if you're going to do well in any dog sport, that you have to put into it. It's just, and it changes that relationship so much. And it, becomes, and especially if you have a dog that loves it, if you have a dog that loves it and they've lost that outlet, you've lost that thing that you do together primarily. I mean, that makes perfect sense that we would grieve that. I think we can grieve a lot of things that are not death, just as hard.
And I don't feel like that gets talked about, because I've had a couple of people reach out to me, and they were like, I feel weird grieving this. I'm like, oh, dude, no, I get it. And I didn't get it before doing sports, though. I didn't. I would have been very empathetic, but I wouldn't have understand the impact. I mean,
and I think you're right. A lot of people will say, well, your dog's fine. Your dog's still alive. And so you should be grateful. Whenever somebody says you should be grateful or something bad happened to you, I want to punch them.
Okay. You know what got me? I kept getting from so many people, well, my dog could do it. Just come take my dog. My dog would love to do that with you.
It's like, that's not the point. Yeah, that's not the point. It's
that
not.
one killed me. I'm sorry. The people that said that to me, I'm sorry.
Well, then it
you
sounds
killed
like
me.
the dog is replaceable with any other dog that can do the same thing, basically. And it's like, no, it's all about what we've built up together over all these years. And we, again, with animals, we know that things are going to happen and things aren't going to go the way we plan, but still, we have expectations. That's like, I think often when something happens, this is not how I expected it to go. And it's like, and that's why I feel so badly sometimes. It's like, because my expectation has, formed, but I thought my reality was going to be, and now that's gone, and it's not going to be the case at all. So, then that's a normal thing to grieve.
We see a lot of this in nose work, because nose work is a lot of times, a dog may be injured and can't do, another sport, like especially agility. We see a lot of dogs that may have had an agility career that had, a career-ending injury, and now they're in nose work, and you see those handlers grieve, right? Because they're grieving the goals, they're grieving the training that they've gone through with this dog, the hopes, the wishes, all of that. And what I've tried to do, with some students that have gone through that, is to try to help them find the new joy in the sport. And when they find that, it's honestly it's so touching, but at the same time, like I understand, and it's hard, and it's just like you see a lot of that. You see it's all wrapped up in that. It's just,
it is, and it's hard to change like midstream. It's like we've been going along this trajectory together to get to whatever my goals are and to do whatever we want to do. And all of a sudden you're telling me, oh, forget all that. Move, you've got to pivot to something else completely. And it's beneficial to be able to do that. But it's not always easy to be able to do that. I think I really admire people when I see them, for example, change sports simply because the dog doesn't like it as much as they do. Not maybe even because they can't do it, but they change sport. But I know that's a hard thing for people to do. When a lot of, what you do is
preach
is wrapped up in, a lot of our identity is wrapped up in what we do with our dogs. Lots of times, whether it should be or not is another story, but it is. And a lot of us have made careers in the dog training world on showing our dogs to higher levels in things. And when you have that interrupted and you can't do that, it impacts, you feel like it impacts your career as well as your relationship, as well as your worth as a human being or whatever else might happen. There's a lot that gets involved there, I think.
So I feel like your book is great for so many levels, and it's not one that you just read and put down. It's one that you continue to work through.
That's what I hope.
That's the layers, because we talked about the anticipatory grief. So it helps with that. It helps you think about, and it also works with after, or the grief of losing your sport buddy, so no longer, so grieving the expectations and the activities you did. So it's this book that should be able to kind of live and grow with you. And I think too, thinking back about grieving is it's a process over time.
Long process.
I think that's what makes this book so powerful, is that you can actually kind of almost not document, but you can kind of see how your grief has changed and actually experience grieving. So I appreciate it.
I think that's, thank you for saying that, because it's the kind of things that I want to get, that I was hoping to accomplish with the book. And one of the things that I really wanted to, what I really hope people will do with it is give it to other people, to give it away to people who are grieving anything, because we don't always know what the right thing is to say, or we there's nothing we can do really to make them feel better for whatever reason. But you can give them the book, and it's a way to show that you're thinking about them, that you care, that you want to do something helpful. And I purposely made it as cheap as I possibly could, so that I could sell it without losing money, because someday. But because I think it's one of those things that should be as freely available as I could possibly make it, that
So wonderful of you.
It will be something that just kind of, like I say, shows that I care about the person that I send this book to or that I give it to. Once you've looked through it yourself a little bit and you know what it's about, I think there's some people it's going to resonate with. And there are other people, like anything, that they're going to be, I didn't know I was going to have to do any work on this. And that's fine too. It's not for everybody.
But that's what grieving is. Grieving is learning.
Right.
You're learning a new life. You're learning new habits. And I think that's what is so great about your book is it's helping us learn our new lives, kind of. It's, yeah.
Thank you.
Grieving is learning.
Oh, yeah. Sadly,
yeah.
Sometimes it's like, why does learning always have to be hard? That was the idea that why can't we learn important lessons in an easy way? That just doesn't seem to be how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't gain any wisdom from stuff being easy. So, we deal with it and we move on, and that's what we do. And hopefully, we run into people along the way that understand and that feel the same way. Yeah. And that's kind of everything to me, that, there are other people out there who get this and who understand it and who can understand what I'm going through. And the selfish reason I write anything is so I can understand how I feel, because I often don't until I write it down.
I'm so thankful for you being selfish.
Write it down and get it out. Then I feel like, okay, it's all gone now. I'm better. It's out of my system. No, it's not really, but it's out of my system enough so that I can move on. And hopefully other people will feel the same way.
Tab is closed.
Exactly.
And that is something too, at the end of our episodes, we always ask takeaways. And so I want you to kind of think about what is it that you would like people to take away from this. And Stacy and I also kind of share, and that will give you a little bit of time to kind of think back. You've had such a
give me a minute to think.
Yeah. Because we've had such a nice long chat. We had a 2-episode chat because we adore you so much. When we got started on this, what did I say? I was like, how long do you have?
Right.
And
you made the mistake.
You took me seriously when I said I had all night. It's gone by so fast. It's been really fun to talk to you guys. So doesn't even feel like it. Next time you have a timeline. You're like, nope, I got an hour. Then it won't take 2. Yeah. No.
But so Stacy, I'm going to let you start if you don't mind. Okay. What is one of your takeaways?
My takeaway is that grief is very personal and that there are really no rules around it, and to not feel like you're doing it wrong. And because I think that's kind of a big.
You just took my takeaway.
Sorry. You'll have to think of a new one. That's okay. Crystal will come up with another one and you can.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. It's just like, it's all personal. And if you feel like you're like, why am I feeling this way? That it's maybe not abnormal. Maybe it's just how you're experiencing. What about you, Crystal? What is your, we're going to have another, because I took away or take away. So.
I like that you gave the space and the permission to say that we are allowed to grieve and we don't have to pretend to do anything besides do what we need to do to get by. And if that means that we have to ignore somebody that's inappropriate, or I think those are good lessons. And some people need that just to hear it from somebody kind of authority. So I do really, I know you're shaking your head, but
I'm like, I have no authority here.
But you do though. I mean, it's something you're passionate about, and you wrote a book. I mean, isn't that what they say?
That's enough. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. No, but I appreciate that kind of the idea too of giving ourselves grace and understanding that our brain has to rewire itself. It's not just a dog, and we don't have to explain that to people. That's not our job. Our job is to do what we need to do to make ourselves better. And that's a big takeaway for me. Let our brains do their rewiring, and there.
Yeah. I think that what you're saying is really important, because the process will happen. If we give it the time and the space, the process will happen. If we try to wrestle the grief into the shape we want it to be and fight it, we're not going down the right path. It's not going to get better. That, it's not something you necessarily can confront head on and overcome. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have this view of grief as this moment. I'll get through it.
There's 5 stages.
I'll get over it. Yeah, I'll go. I'll be better in a few months. It'll be, whatever. And it's like, no, it's none of the things that we imagine it to be. It's a long-term life process that we can't go back. And I think that's really my big takeaway is I can't be the person I was before this happened to me. Yeah. I have to become a different person now. And it's going to take struggle to figure out who that person is and how they function in the world. But it can happen. And you can still have, no matter how deep the grief, you can still have a good life beyond it. And it can leave you with a lot of good things going forward. But that doesn't mean we're ever happy that it happened. And it doesn't mean we ever forget or we didn't love them or care about them. Yeah. But we can go forward, and that there's something to look forward to. But I don't think it's the total acceptance and I'm great and I'm back to my normal self now, because I think that's the fallacy of it here. So become a new.
So there
person.
Is no normal.
I'm a psychologist. I am an authority here. I'm a psychologist.
That's right. You have
there is
the PhD after your name. So.
Yeah, there's absolutely no normal. And the fact that people teach that, and I even taught it for so many years, it's like, that's a lie. We're all unique in our own special ways sometimes. And that's still okay. You know, it's okay to be different from the norm.
Yeah.
And
thank
I think
you for that space.
Well, thank you
really,
guys. It's really been great to talk to you. I like I say, it's a hard topic, and you guys, you just made it so easy to talk about a lot of different aspects of it that sometimes it gets uncomfortable, but I didn't feel like that at all in this.
No, I feel like I've learned a lot and I've grown, and thank you for spending this time and helping me grow more. I mean, right in front of everybody, I feel like I've grown a lot. So thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you. I feel great. I feel good about the whole thing right now for the moment. We'll all feel bad privately elsewhere later.
I'll go shake the box up in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Because we felt too good now.
Gotta have some guilt for that.
And I think that the whole, the communicating, the social communication with people who understand it, that helps so much. Just to go, oh, you feel the same way too. And, you feel the same way that I feel. Or you've had the same experiences on a basic level that I have. It makes us feel normal. Yes. It's like, I'm not so unusual
experience
that nobody else feels it. So I think it's good to share that. And I think it's good for us to publicly talk about it.
Yes.
Those of us that have some sort of a voice in the dog training world, to normalize it. Yes. And to talk about our losses and how we're dealing with them, and to not make it some taboo topic that we avoid.
Yes. Thank you so much for spending this time. And thank you to all of our listeners too, for coming into both of our episodes here. And if you will check out our socials, caninedetectioncollaborative.com. That's K9 detectioncollaborative.com. And we look forward to hearing your stories, and check out our Facebook and Instagram and reply back, because we'll have some great questions out there for you. Thanks again.
Excellent. Thank you.
Canine Detection Collaborative. We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to canine-detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9 detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.